It's a well-known fact that building a new home is the single most stressful thing you're likely to embark upon, but approached correctly, it can also be one of the most rewarding. So where do you start, and what can you expect on your journey? What are the advantages of engaging an architect or a designer, and how much will it cost? Trends put these questions and many more to renowned home designer David Ponting.
I think it gets a house that relates to those people specifically. It's unique to them. It's unique to how they feel about that landscape. It's a lot more it's a lot more precise in its relativity to context. Within cities, yes, there's a lot of context, and you have to work with that. However, those contexts are adapting once a house is finished. So we're really thinking about what are the amenities beyond the immediate buildings within a city urban context, and knowing that houses are going to get pulled down and new ones are going to go up, but we want to make sure that the sun is always getting into the right parts of the house, that the view corridors where they are can be maintained as much as possible, the materials are going to last, that the building itself will be a timeless idea, a timeless sculpture within that landscape, and therefore won't be one of the houses that's pulled down. I think once you get a greenfields environment, there's a little bit more poetic license to be expressive within the greater sense of space. There's more about architecture that reaches out to the distance, that connects to the horizon or looks up to the hills, that brings the sky into the house, as opposed to maybe blocking out the neighbours that are more prevalent in a city environment. There's a matter of getting a feel for a neighbourhood, because you have to relate to that context in a heritage zone. You can't ignore it. It's not about dropping a glass box in amongst a whole lot of weatherboard villas. You're just not going to get away with it. So the goal to get a contemporary house in is to look at how you can blend into that environment and find the commonalities with the neighbours, and a big part of that is landscaping. There's so much you can do to create a green environment that you hide the house behind. The other one is looking at the textural character of the buildings around, and if you can introduce that texture, even if it's a different shape as an overall form, if the texture's there, and there's a proportion and a scale, they're the criteria that the council are looking to have met, as opposed to replicating the neighbours. Well, it's understanding what it is you want to achieve, what's going to excite you when it is built, what's going to meet your practical needs, your functional requirements, what your budget is, and how far that budget can realistically expect to go. And I think you end up writing a very long list when you look at all the aspects involved, and they're different lists. A budget list is a different thing to a poetic materiality list. However, the common thing that I say to or ask all people to do is prioritise their list. Say what's the most important, what's the second most important. Go down the list and put everything you've thought of on the list in terms of top to bottom, because the money's going to run out somewhere, and it's good to know what's down low isn't dominating decisions when it's the things at the top of the list that have to be prioritised and have the design based around those needs, not something irrational that isn't that important once it's been recognised for where it should sit on the scale. Images help a lot. Yeah, they say huge things. At the same time, those images need to be qualified, because in one photo there could be 30 different elements. Identify on those photos, on those magazine cutouts, what it is about that picture that really sells that dream. It's very important. Yeah, the number of Trends magazines I've had put in front of me, it's great because there's such a variety in the Trends issues. It gives people a chance to consider what suits them, as opposed to what might be being pushed by other issues, other magazines, as a contemporary only ideal. There's a lot more flavour to pick from. Lots of talking, lots of opening up about what it is about these lists, these images that really reflect what you're wanting to achieve as a client, and taking the time to connect with the designer, with the architect, to feel really comfortable that you're talking about your personal life, your expectations, your concerns and fears. It's making a strong, open, communicative process through discussion, and on the basis of you asking clearly for what you're after, there's a fair chance you'll get it. But if you don't ask for it, it's not quite so likely. So make sure you're getting across what your goals are. I think at that early stage, once there's an understanding of what it is that's wanted, it's a matter of doing a feasibility study of the probable cost per square metre, for example, of a house with the level of material richness and scale that's being discussed. It's from previous projects, we can always understand a likely build value per square metre. Extrapolating that forward, we can tell people pretty accurately from the outset if they're dreaming, or if great, this should flow smoothly. You can expect to have that, but it takes a bit of experience understanding how to connect the expectation of quality against the expectation of what the market, what it costs the building market to create that. It's about recognising that once the size of a building is understood based on the elements that will make up that house, the kitchens, the bathrooms, the number of bedrooms, the number of living areas, the size of the garage, we can estimate pretty clearly how big this house will need to be to meet that criteria list. Then understanding the cost of materials that are being requested will point out whether this house could be built for $2,500 a square metre or needs $7,000 a square metre. It's simple maths after that, and the result of those very early discussions mean people can either get to understand they need to find more money if they want that scale of house or that quality of product, or whether they have to relook at their needs in terms of size and proportion. And it's a balancing act. Everyone wants more than they can afford, no matter how much money they've got. It's pretty much about the quality of the product, yes. What we endeavour to do with design is to simplify the use of that product. You can create a very complex roofline that might not add much to the value of the house. If you can simplify forms and create building processes that are simpler, faster, you can make the money go further with the same quality of material. But that does come down to the simplicity of the sculptural form itself. I suppose typically for most of the houses you would see in a trends magazine, averaging through the range, you'd be talking about $4,000 a square metre. That's as an average. A spec home's going to be between $2,500 and $3,000 a square metre, and that's a much simpler form. There's a lot less detail. People are thinking at that level very carefully about where they spend extra value in terms of a premium product. I think when you're building a home where you need to spread your pennies thin, you want to be looking at firstly the broad needs accurately and looking carefully at your list. If there's things on that list that are wants as opposed to needs, then you've got to prioritise them right down the bottom. The other factor is to look at how you might be able to stage the program, where you can look at the overall shell, the closed-in building that becomes usable, and maybe some areas of it don't even have gibboard on the walls. But what you do need to be able to live is completed and is made comfortable, and then over time you chip away with cash flow at what you need to finish. I think when the brief is becoming far more personalised, and it's a home for yourself, and it's a home you intend to stay in for a while, where you know you're probably going to be maximising the capital value of the property you own. However, you know that because you'll be there for 10 years minimum, it's about lifestyle. You're going to get a great experience living there. You won't be living in a generic series of boxes. They'll be all about you and all about the view, all about the sunshine, all about the way you want to live. And that's why you go through this process as opposed to buying a set of plans off a shelf. Well, the advantages of going straight off an existing house with a set of plans that could go straight into council again are, firstly, you can walk around in it, you can understand it, you can feel it. There's that certainty, there's that level of surety that you're paying this much for that exact product. You can get the process underway quickly because the documents exist. You've really got to apply them to a site, which is a relatively quick process. You can adapt those plans quite easily, as long as they don't go beyond such a shift that the building doesn't work anymore for some reason. So there's expediency and there's surety of result. There's probable surety of cost as well. Prefabrication's an exciting idea. It's got, I think it's got a massive market where there are large populations. It's got a large market where, say, it might be holiday homes, where people are looking to drop something that's not too large on a site and be able to use it pretty quickly. However, there's a limit to how big an object can be trucked. So you're not typically dealing with the more substantial family homes or city homes. You're dealing with homes where the trucks can get in and out of the property easily, that can be carried, it can get under the power lines and the motorway bridges. So there's always limitations for that. There's also I think an important one for New Zealanders, which is personality, the uniqueness of personality. And I don't think too many people want to have a house that looks just like the one on the next hill over. I think the material choice is a personal preference for starters. Some people prefer a timber experience, some prefer a more of a concrete material around them. The timber houses have a great deal of flexibility. They're quicker to build, they cost less. There's a natural warmth that can be experienced from them, and I think that they're understood, and I think there's a comfort in understanding how a building goes up, and if you want to adapt it, you can quite easily. The concrete block, precast concrete, that when you get into more mass solid forms, they're stronger, heavier, more dense homes. They offer an acoustic quality, a thermal quality that is significantly better than what a timber house will offer. But they cost a lot more, they take a lot longer to build, they're less adaptive later on. However, they offer a permanence and a sense of quality and self-assuredness that people see the value in, and those who do see the value and want to go and do that, they come up with an amazingly powerful result that I think has a richness that timber just can't compare to, unfortunately. Sustainable design, firstly, is about designing something that isn't going to be knocked over in a hurry, because building something is a big exercise, whether it's made out of eco products or not. I believe that buildings that are timeless in their formal architectural values, bring sunshine into people's lives, look great, then they're going to last the test of time. Thereafter, there's the common sense of making sure you're facing the right way. You're getting a warm home. You're using insulation to the right levels. You're providing a space which people don't want to leave. That will become a sustainable house. Then the layering of the materials that it's made with, of thinking about plantation timbers as opposed to rainforest timbers, that's very important. Knowing that the processes that some materials might go through that involve chemicals that aren't going to be great in your life, they can all be looked at, and there's many decisions across the house. Carbon footprint's a bit of a talking point. However, it is very hard to know for sure what the pros and cons of those are. Concrete is regarded as having a high carbon footprint, but if the house lasts 100 years longer, it's a very low carbon footprint across that span. So pros and cons in all departments. A beautiful home will last, and it will be probably highly sustainable because of that. Well, I think double glazing is very important. We deal with very strong sun conditions and a high temperate range of climate. I think there's the looking at solar energy, which is becoming more and more affordable, looking at geothermal heat pump opportunities where you're drawing the heat out of the ground just through temperature differential. There's a lot of new technologies coming on board for harvesting of natural energy, and if you've got a little bit of extra money to spend up front, it sure will reap rewards in the long run. I believe the market can have a lot of confidence in all products, or say nearly all products. There's a few that will fail. There's always going to be products tested on the marketplace. However, the regulatory environment now is so much more secure. However, the basic rule of thumb, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Don't expect someone who you're not paying a fair wage to do a good job. There'll be a reason they're cheap. The systems are as good as the applicator, and you want to know that you're hiring a good team and that they've got a checking process, a quality assurance process of their own. On that basis, and a good builder at the top of the tree, you won't have any problems. It's very important during the design process, whether it's early on or later, that there's a full costing of that design before you go and get all your building consent plans ready. Design drawings are exactly that, they're design information, they're not construction information. By adding a list of the materials that have been expected within that design, a quantity surveyor can come on board and do a full schedule of what that house should cost given current market conditions. And that's critical, because without that knowledge of real market probability of cost, you could end up spending a great deal of money on a set of construction plans, building consent drawings, that you can't afford to build. So very, very important. Anyone not doing that is sticking their head in the sand and hoping. And we will not let clients move into construction without knowing that they've been told by an independent source what this is going to cost. Choosing a builder is, once again, it's a bit of a personal process. A builder has to reflect the personality of the project to a large degree. They've got to prove they can, or that they have done it, they can do it, that they're going to commit themselves to that project, they'll commit themselves to the requirements of the client. In terms of hand-holding to some degree, in terms of communicating clearly what's going right, what's not going right, if there's extras coming through that might be adding up, they have to be clear about that in advance. Once again, builders can't stick their head in the sand, or the client's head in the sand as part of the process. It's about being honest. The notional unforeseens are usually either in the ground. A geotech report's going to help understand what's in the ground, and that's usually now part of a documentation process. But sometimes people find out later, oh, there was some soft soil, or there was a big rock, and no one could see it. It's so important to build a contingency into a building program to allow for what you just would never have been able to know in advance, and it's a safety net. Hopefully it doesn't need to be there or be drawn upon, but it's crucial. Cost blowouts also occur because of project creep, where typically an idea comes along later in the piece, post-brief, post-design, post-documentation, and people just see something at a friend's house. They thought, oh geez, I really wish I asked for that earlier, maybe we can add that as well. And a very good one, for example, is home automation. Home automation's a complex thing that has to be done very well and accurately to meet its objectives, but the cost range is massive, and quite a few people can get carried away from what they thought was a little idea, and it becomes a very big idea. Suddenly they want their curtains opening and closing at the push of a button. They want to be able to phone their batch and have the jug turned on just before they arrive. All very nice, but it's important to come back to the question, do I need this, and does this new idea realistically fit within the budget I set for myself? I think the fees across the architectural industry are typically based around 10% of the project value. Now that's to take the design from meeting for the very first time, discussing everything, resolving a powerful concept, refining that concept, getting resource consent, getting the costings approved, doing all the building consent documentation for full construction, as well as all the interior detail. That's the kitchens, the bathrooms, the electrical, the stairwells. Everything that's going to go in that house is part of a powerful documentation package that can be priced, tendered, or worked with a selected builder. It's comprehensive. There can be extra cost thereafter depending on how much the architect or designer is required on site in selecting the builder, making sure a contract is tailored between the builder and the client, which does keep the lawyers out of the process to a reasonable degree, which is also a saving in truth. And also the time on site, because as much as you can have a comprehensive set of drawings and everything is outlined, things arise. It's an industry that's got a lot of interaction between different trades. Different opportunities can be seen when you're 3 stories up off the ground that weren't obvious before the design process started. So It's a long process. It takes anywhere between a year and 3 years to get from the point where you first met your designer architect to when you've got a home. And all opportunities need to be explored. So it's important to keep people on board from one end to the other. Project managers have a very good place in the industry. It's very, very important to make sure that someone is managing the process who is a professional at it. Now, the project manager can either be an independent person who looks after a team of builders, or it can be that a main contractor has their own project manager as part of the team. They're crucial. You don't want to be getting someone who doesn't have the skills of understanding all the trades, all the suppliers, and all the interactions doing this. You wouldn't try and build a car for yourself and expect it to be safe, and yet many people do try and build their own house or project manage their own house. I don't believe there's any savings in it. It ends up costing people more in the long run, and the quality is lower. So why it's important, you get the quality you expect and you pay the right price. If there's conflict in a construction process, it's stressful. There's a lot of anxiety around that. If the most unfortunate situations evolve where you've got a great builder, you've worked with a great architectural practice, then it's usually an unforeseen element. It's important to have had a contingency in place in case that comes up, which helps deal with the stress and the pressure. Usually the first point of call will be going back to the most independent person in that process, and that it will be the designer or the architect, to review it from the point of view of where are the issues here and the problems need to be solved, how do we resolve it, but resolve it with the team at the table together. I would avoid any legal environments until people were not prepared to help out. Always give the team you've employed the chance to resolve a problem for you, and know that they want to. Know that their role in life is to do so. It's their job, and they will. I think there's a lot of architecture is about looking at what's been done before and recognising what was good about it, what wasn't good, what was its context. But new ideas are always coming through because it's for unique people and it's for unique places, and the collision of those forces mean that new ideas come to the surface. Also, new technologies allow for new ideas. New materials are coming through, and how they're being manipulated. It's fair to say that the greater the budget, the more likelihood of new processes, thoughts, sculptural opportunities coming through. At the same time, if you think hard enough, you can do great things with matchsticks. In the last few years, I think the roofing membrane technology has become so much more secure that we know that a house won't leak if we're doing low-pitched roofs, and we can make more sculptural shapes because of it. And those forms allow for a house that's a lot more expressive and probably unexpected to what houses used to look like. I think aluminium products are becoming a lot better made. We can have very high windows, big wide sliding doors, and we can peel back entire walls of houses, and that's something which allows the inside of the house to really embrace where it is, create that incredible connection with context. I think there's a lot of stones coming on the market. There's the ability to source stone from all over the world and create really rich palettes, environments that are a lot more lush than we used to be able to do. So it's accessibility to the worldwide markets that are probably helping that. I think we get to become part of our external world. New Zealanders love being outside, love being part of where they are, and houses in most parts of the country, even the colder parts, which are still beautiful, people want to be able to look out the window, walk beyond the roof line and become surrounded by greenery, see the sky, enjoy the sun. I find there's a wonderful courage amongst the New Zealand client base to explore their opportunity and to express themselves, a lot more so than what I see when travelling of countries that are inhibited by historical architecture processes which really are stuck in their ways, and councils overseas won't let people do different things. So we've got less less rigid environments to design in, and more dynamic people looking to explore the opportunity. So it's a great thing. I think the more international population is bringing new ideas, new textures, new materials, a new level of sort of crafted surface, especially. If you travel to Indonesia, you see amazingly richly carved carpentry surfaces, beautiful stones, more richly textured, detailed surfaces than maybe typical of the New Zealand environment. So I think we've really embraced the opportunities of the Asia Pacific region. I suppose that's the more dominant local sort of international crossover that I'm aware of. No doubt there'll be more European influences, but I suppose what's local feels right, and if something is imported beyond feeling appropriate, like a Tuscan villa, for example, I'll really struggle with drawing a Tuscan villa because we're not in Tuscany, whereas Pacific Rim ideas feel more appropriate to context. LED lighting has changed an understanding of, I suppose, energy usage to a wonderful degree. The products themselves are allowing for much smaller fittings, much more discrete ways of achieving lighting effects. So it's simplifying interiors, definitely. At the same time, they are expensive, and to be pushed to their limits, they are expensive. So it's got to be a matter of horses for courses. The lamps still work. I think the sun is the most powerful source of energy we've got, and controlling the solar gain to benefit is a critical part of sensible design. And a good house should be a common sense solution in basis. Then it's wrapped in a far more expressive manner to become what is unique to the people who it's for. In terms of man-made energy, thereafter, I think solar harvesting is for starters is a great opportunity. I think having a house that has mass, so that once you have got the warmth you need, it stays there. It doesn't disappear out the walls. If you're dealing with timber-framed houses, then packing in the insulation as much as you can afford to is a great use of funds right from the outset. I think geothermal wells are an incredible idea, and especially in the South Island, where air temperature to ground temperature difference is so vast, and heating bills are so high. Well, I can see an explosion of use of photovoltaics there. If they're getting in the order of $5,000 a house lot now, and that can run 80 to 90% of your power needs, who wouldn't? It's going to become a no-brainer. I suppose the bladder idea is pretty low tech. It still requires energy used to pump water through it, and they're not that cost efficient in terms of their overall installation for what they are. I think the photovoltaics are going to leave them in the dust. Personally, not that I've done a huge amount of research on it, but hot water is only part of your electrical needs. Hot water doesn't help with lighting. I think water is being charged for the same as power is being charged for now, and it's going up every year, and it no doubt will continue. So having a pragmatic balance of what you can use that you gain off your own roof for irrigation, potentially for interior shower use, cleaning. It's going to come down to how much extra budget you need to put aside against your cash flow. It's worth putting the infrastructure in from day one. To be honest, I don't know the numbers. I think I would imagine you'd have to put about $10,000 aside for a basic system, and that's the core of it. Then there's going to be how you distribute that water thereafter. I think it makes sense if you're external of a town water supply. It would make very, very good sense. Once again, in town there's choices, and I suppose there's always this issue of convenience. People are typically happy to pay for convenience. However, it might change. We just don't know. Obviously, we've been through a pretty serious drought this summer within the country. it might get worse, but I have a feeling New Zealand's overall balance is a temperate country, is one where rainfall in the cities is never really going to be a problem. If I put it in terms of if it was my house and I had my client's type of budget to do something with, I'd be looking at the metals. I'd love to be exploring what copper can achieve. It's a wonderful material. It ages so wonderfully. It's incredibly fluid. I'd be looking at stone, strong mass materials, and also exploring concrete. As age old as it is, it's got such a scope to be, as a liquid in its initial form, to be cast in any shape possible, and you get an incredibly strong acoustic thermal structure as well. I suppose I'd be going to town with light fixtures. I'd be trawling through Tom Dixon's catalogue, the shiny reflective surfaces. Gosh, that's I'd be a kid in it. I think people are going to get used to smaller houses. For starters, there's a compression. There's more people coming into the country. We'll be looking for more clever use of space, smaller spaces that are more functional, adaptive, that have hopefully richer materials in them. There's a higher quality of space, as opposed to large rooms with low ceilings and chipboard painted. You might find that there are stones being used that add a sense of mass and permanence to a space. Construction materials being more something that will last longer. I think more reliance on concrete block work as a substrate as opposed to timber framing. I think we're going to find the window systems are getting more affordable, and so people are going to get more ability to open their houses up to the outside, as long as they're facing the right way. And thereafter, the landscapes are going to get far better because of that. People are going to be investing in their gardens, their hardscaping, outdoor living rooms that can with louver roof systems that can open and close. The climate appears to be getting warmer, but more so people just want to be outside where they can see the stars at night. So houses that relate more so to being outside as much as they are inside.
In the next Designer Series video, Leonie von Sturmer looks at the trends in kitchen design.